Hey, what's up? Well, I'm back again on literal St. Patrick's Day with a video. And this video I want to be somewhat different. Okay, while I might begin filming this video on St. Patrick's Day, I want it to be the first time ever where I actually make a video and do not even upload it until several days later. And so, I might begin this video in one outfit. See my St. Patrick's Day shirt, my official St. Patrick's Day shirt. See, if I didn't have this one, I could just wear a regular green shirt like I always have. And by the time I actually complete this video and post it, I'm hoping to be possibly wearing something entirely different because it's supposed to rain and turn colder. Very soon. It's supposed to rain today, which is why I went somewhere yesterday, in honor of St. Patrick's Day or St. Patrick's Eve. But today it's gonna rain just continuously, supposedly beginning it in the wee hours of the morning, and then after it stops raining, it's supposed to get windy, and hopefully it'll drop one last time into the upper 30s if we're lucky. And so and I also want to unbox a package by the end of this video. So I may, splice this together with some clips, and hopefully I won't just delete this one and have to start over. But I want to unbox a package that will hopefully come in early this week. Was unable to get it in by St. Patrick's Day, but then of course there's Easter. I always tell myself there's next holiday and next holiday and next holiday. So without further ado, I want to talk in this video about stupid, uncaring people. That's what I want to talk about how people, well, throughout my lifespan, have just cared so little about me that it really makes me mad. It makes me angry and depressed, and just gives me negative emotions in general. The fact that people just literally don't care about me for the most part, or by and large, people other than my immediate family have just ignored me to whatever extent possible, and if I was, while I was in their life, even the few people that pretended to be nice to me at the time being, once a few years passed, or, once I was no longer in their life, even if they may have still remembered who I was in the back of their mind, they did everything humanly possible not to acknowledge me when they saw me around. You know what I'm saying? Most people that have known me in the past, unless it was relatively soon after I knew them, they don't just stop me and say, "Hey, how's it going? Remember when?" Now, there's been a few exceptions. A few people have talked to me in the store, and those are probably the people that I wish wouldn't talk to me. But it's just the funniest thing how I can just look right at somebody thinking, "Don't I know you?" And they just walk on and pretend not to know who I am. And I just wanted to talk about that, and how, people, when I talk about these colds I used to get, past about the 7th and possibly 8th grade, possibly a little into high school, I want to say, well, for sure, I have never had anyone acknowledge me having a cold from college onward. And that was one of the many reasons why I hated college. And it was just not a very happy time in my life. Me rediscovering dolls. People probably laugh at me about these stupid dolls and how the highlight of my life is hoarding dolls and other things. Well, you know what? That's because people don't give a crap about me. And of course, the dolls can't either, but at least they have a reason why they can't. Um, but it's just so hard on me when, people either they either block me online, or they go out of their way to push me out of their life, and or they refuse to acknowledge me. You know what I'm saying? And like all these colds that I talk about, the reason I talk so much about them is because of the fact that, well, nobody would acknowledge them. I mean, other than beginning in college, there was no one except my mom and people in my family and people who knew me, and had dealings with me every single day and for the rest of my life. No one, not one person ever really acknowledged me having a cold. And, like I would go to college, and when I think, it just makes me so mad when I read stories of students being sent home because they sounded sick. um, well, I mean, my days were like way before the COVID thing, or, students going to the professor and saying, you know what, I don't feel well, I need to skip class. Well, it was amazing how I never had perfect attendance through my senior year of high school. I mean, diarrhea saw to that. Even the few years when I decided to go to school, with every cold that I had, I would get diarrhea unexpectedly, and you can imagine why I would never want to, just go to school with that. Um, but I never had perfect attendance. Not one year from kindergarten through my senior year, ever. Never did I have a year where I didn't miss one day. The minimum was one day. And that's when I was trying really hard to get it. But then once I got to college, it was the other way around, in the sense that um, I may have skipped a few days for stupid reasons, or skipped lab. Like I may have gone to, like if we had a science class, it was basically 2 classes long, lecture and lab. I may have gone to lecture but not lab. And I regret that. I regret some of the things I did, but never once, unless I dropped a course because I wasn't doing well and didn't tell my parents, never once did I miss school in college, or have to be absent because I felt so badly. And I was averaging, like I said, about 3 colds per year in college. But because I had such a light class load, as in no more than about 2 or 3 classes a day. If I had a lab, I guess that would be like a third class. No more than 3 hours, roughly, did I want to be in class. So it was basically like I was going a half a day compared to what I did in high school. You know what I'm saying? And I find it ironic that my senior year was, of course, my best year of high school for not getting colds. And guess what? I only went half a day. I only went through fourth period because I didn't need that many credits to graduate. Really could have graduated early. But so my senior year of high school, I only had maybe 3 colds that year, one of them very mild, so more like 2.5. So it was kind of like more like my college years, where I get 2 to 3 colds a year instead of 4 to 5. And a lot of that had to do with reducing my germ exposure, or my class time, by 50%. You know what I'm saying? When I was like, what, 6 through 17, I guess you could say middle childhood and adolescence. I like to think of childhood ever since I took lifespan psychology and made an A, just like general psych. I see childhood as being broken up into thirds, regardless of the person and what stage of development they're at those ages. You know what I'm saying? Because if you went by, how mature the person is, then obviously the boys would have a longer infancy and childhood, if you know what I mean. So I like to go by ages, not stages or development. So I like to think of, And it's easy for me. The first 6 years of life is infancy and early childhood, when you're 5 and under. And in my case, being redshirted, I was not in school yet at 5 and under, so that's easy for me to remember. And yeah, then I think of middle childhood as ages 6 through 11 or 12 or so, like basically the elementary years when you're losing teeth, but you haven't completed puberty. You still have some growing to do. Even if you've begun puberty, you're not finished. So roughly ages 6 until 12, or through age 11 for sure, maybe 12. So that's middle childhood. You're not a teenager, but then you're not a little bitty kid. And so that's easy for me to remember because for me that was kindergarten through the 5th grade. So basically elementary school was middle childhood, even though puberty began like the summer between 3rd and 4th grade. But I didn't get my period until the end of 5th grade when I was almost 12. So roughly those years when I was losing teeth, which began at age 6, but didn't yet have a menstrual period until I was almost 12. So that's middle childhood. Elementary school. And then adolescence, of course, for me that would have been like junior high and high school until my senior year because I was legally an adult. And I even voted, although it wasn't a presidential election. I voted in a local election my senior year of high school because I was over 18. And yeah, that's when my braces came off and took my senior portraits and all that. And so I want to say like about 12 through 17, that's adolescence. Probably the roughest part of my life as far as being depressed all the time and beginning to cut myself at 15. And, that of course continued until my early 20s. So, that stage is probably the hardest for girls, ages roughly 12 through 17. It's like you have a period, but you're not a legal adult yet. And so, yeah, I call that adolescence, or late childhood is what it used to be called. And so the number of colds, I'm pretty sure, the highest annual cold rate that I ever had was middle childhood, probably 6 or 7 a year, if 6th grade is any indication of how it was. And I remember having, well, no less than 1 or 2 per semester. So ages 6 through 11 or 12-ish, middle childhood was the worst as far as me and colds. Adolescence, 12 through 17, because of my little sister. She used to get an average of at least 1 more cold per year than me during that time. So it's like I was only 1 cold behind what I had been in middle childhood because of my sister. And so, that was my second worst time for colds, ages 12 through 17. My last year, my junior year of high school when I went, I had 7 class periods, so I was there all day at school, and I had a little sister. So I was averaging about 4 or 5 colds a year at least, like 1 during each of the 4 seasons, plus an extra 1 in winter. And then, of course, early adulthood, 18 through 24 or so, I was averaging about 3, 2 to 3, 2.5 to 3, which is considered the average for an adult, which is like a cold during each of the 4 seasons except for summer. Almost never, at the beginning of the school year anymore. So that's about, I guess that's normal for someone with a much younger sister. And then, of course, once I got well into my adult years, past 25, of course, it's never been more than 1 per year. So I guess I'm getting about half the typical number, and that's because I don't have children. So it's almost like I had children in my life at a different stage of development than most people. And it gave me a very unique perspective on children and on life. And, it was almost like having an unwanted baby when I was 9, even though she didn't come out of my body. And, so yeah, it's like, oh, this video's gotten way too long. But yeah, it just really makes me mad. These uncaring bastards in my life, all my life, that how nobody really, just nobody ever acknowledged these colds. And when I read up or I hear about professors that have sent kids home because they were coughing or sniffling, it just makes me want to scream because that has never been my experience. Never. I never once missed any, not even a moment of college because of a cold. If anything, it was just the opposite. That was an incentive for me to go to school with a cold. Number one, because it's like every single, like, no matter how many times I just got through it without one person acknowledging it whatsoever. And it was like a thrill that I got. It's like I would give this speech about how I'm this superheroic space alien that doesn't get sick. Ever since 7th grade, I started doing that. And I would do that all the way into college. And every single time I would get cold, it was almost like a thrill in seeing who would acknowledge it and what they would say about it. But every single time in college, from college onward for sure, I was disappointed in that they didn't say a thing. It was almost like an unspoken conspiracy. And I feel so angry, as I go back in time in my head and remember these colds and just how people just willfully ignored them. Like they refused to acknowledge any aspect of me having a cold. They really tried to do it beginning, I want to say in 8th grade. Most people did. But there was still just a small number that would acknowledge it. You know what I'm saying? Like beginning in 7th grade, and I'm starting to look back and realize that, hey, maybe they weren't being sympathetic. Perhaps they were making fun of me in a way that I didn't pick up on. You know what I'm saying? Because they did not acknowledge other people having colds like they did me. So maybe they were doing it to pick on me without being rude. And so, for sure in high school, most people didn't say anything about it. Like I could just cough my head off all day long in class. Cough, cough, cough. And they wouldn't say a thing about it except perhaps, stop coughing on me or something like that. But, by and large, the teachers didn't really say anything about it in high school. And then I got to college and it's like, everybody was like the teachers, from then onward. It's like I never once missed a moment of class for it, because when you only have 2 or 3 classes a day, why would you throw away an hour of lecture time for a case of the sniffles? You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much what I get. Sniffles with a cough for a week or so. And barely affected my voice, barely affected me really. And so, I never missed any class time, never even had one single professor acknowledge these symptoms. Not one professor ever once told me, wow, you sound bad today. Yeah, nothing like that. And this was, considering that I introduced myself as someone who was incapable of getting a cold. So yeah, they just woefully ignored it, and I just look back on that and feel so angry how they're just so uncaring, and years later, it's like I would see them at the store or whatnot, and they pretended not to know who I was, and would go on another aisle at the store just to avoid me. And now on the internet, it's like if I dare even say a word to them or reach out to them in any way, they'll block me or put their stuff on private or run away from me online in various ways, like I'm a monster. And so, yeah, people are just uncaring bastards, and it never ceased to amaze me just how strong their will was to ignore me having a cold, in my adult life and onward. Just ignore every aspect of it. And of course, the professors and students would also get colds. And naturally, I didn't really say much to them about it either. And nobody really did anything. Like, no professor ever said to a student, wow, you sound bad, you need to go home. Well, that never happened, you know, because this was pre-COVID and all that. So anyway, hey, what's up? Well, what do you know? I'm back to make another video, and I'm still wearing my same shirt. So I like to make this really quick. I want to get this over with very quickly so that I can go ahead and post it and not have a long video. But without showing my address, the package that came in was this beautiful pink envelope. And what's in it will probably not surprise you. But let's see what it is. Part of me just wishes I didn't have to cut into it and I could just open it. But that's probably not going to work out. It's too sticky. Let's see. But I will cut it as little as possible. And what do you know? Is a precious little doll, very similar to this one. It's the Honey Hill Bunch, and her name, it's supposed to be Darlin', but I want to call her Darla, like Darla Dimple, because I feel like they gave them really stupid names in the 70s, you know, like they didn't think they had to have a real name, you know, like an actual person's name. And they just called it whatever they thought it looked like. They figured kids had enough imagination that they could name it whatever they wanted. And this one, instead of Spunky, is Sammy. And this one, instead of Darlin', is Darla. So, you know, what better way to say that this is a little boy doll than to have a more feminine version that looks more like a girl standing next to him. So there's my little Honey Hill Bunch doll, and I'll go ahead and post this video.